My brother laughed when the bank manager refused my loan. Not quietly, not politely, he leaned back in the leather chair and actually laughed. The sound echoed across the glass walls of the conference room while the manager looked awkwardly between us. "Emily, this is exactly why people shouldn't mix emotions with business," my brother Mark said, tapping the folder containing my proposal. "Restaurants fail every day. Investors need proven operators, not dreamers." I kept my hands folded on the table even though my heart was pounding so loudly I could barely hear the rest of the conversation. Mark had always been the successful one in our family. He owned 3 upscale restaurants across the city, appeared in local business magazines, and loved reminding everyone that he had built everything from nothing. When the meeting ended, he placed a hand on my shoulder with a smile that felt more like pity. "You're talented, Em," he said softly. "But ambition without experience can ruin people." That was the moment I realized something important. Mark didn't see me as competition. He saw me as someone who would always stand in his shadow. For the next 3 years, that shadow followed me everywhere. Family gatherings became small stages where Mark performed his success like a rehearsed speech. My parents listened proudly while he talked about expansion plans, new investors, and celebrity chefs visiting his restaurants. Whenever someone asked about my life, Mark would casually interrupt with a joke about my experimental business ideas. I smiled through every dinner, every holiday, every sarcastic remark. What no one knew was that I had stopped chasing loans the day the bank rejected me. Instead, I started building something quietly, something Mark didn't even realize existed. It began with a small consulting project for a struggling food delivery startup. They needed help improving their customer experience. I spent weeks studying how people actually ordered food online, what they clicked, how long they waited, which restaurants they chose. The patterns fascinated me. Customers didn't just want food. They wanted convenience, speed, and personalization. Within months, I developed a data system that predicted what customers would order before they even opened the app. The startup used my model and their orders tripled in 6 months. That success led to another contract, then another. Soon major restaurant chains were hiring me to redesign their delivery operations. I never appeared in magazines. I never posted about success online. I reinvested every dollar into building a technology platform that connected restaurants, delivery services, and customer data into a single predictive network. Meanwhile, Mark kept expanding his restaurants, convinced that elegant dining rooms and celebrity chefs were the future of the industry. He mocked delivery apps at family dinners. "Real food isn't something people order from their couch," he said once, raising his wine glass while everyone nodded. I just smiled quietly. 2 years later, something unexpected happened. One of Mark's biggest investors contacted my consulting firm. His restaurant group was struggling with declining revenue. Customers weren't visiting physical locations as often anymore. Delivery and digital orders were taking over the market faster than anyone predicted. The investor wanted my system implemented across several restaurants. I agreed. But there was one condition. The technology would only operate if the entire restaurant group adopted my company's infrastructure. That group included Mark's flagship restaurant. When the proposal reached him, he rejected it immediately. "Emily runs a consulting startup," he told the investors confidently. "We don't need experimental tech. My restaurants are thriving." The investors didn't argue. They simply waited. 6 months later, 2 of Mark's restaurants were losing money. Delivery-focused competitors were capturing younger customers faster than traditional dining establishments could adapt. That's when the investors called me again. This time they weren't asking for consulting. They were asking if I would consider something much bigger. Acquiring the entire restaurant group. I remember sitting alone in my apartment staring at the numbers on my laptop. My company had grown faster than I ever imagined. Venture capital firms had begun investing heavily in predictive restaurant technology. If I wanted to expand my platform nationally, acquiring an established restaurant brand would accelerate everything. Mark's business wasn't just a group of restaurants anymore. It was the perfect infrastructure for my technology. So I made an offer. Negotiations took 3 weeks. Mark never knew who the buyer was. When the deal finalized, I scheduled a meeting with the restaurant leadership team. Monday morning. Mark walked into the executive conference room wearing the same confident expression he always carried. He assumed the meeting was about restructuring after the sale. When the investors began discussing the future of the company, he leaned back casually in his chair. "Whoever bought this group must know what they're doing," he said. "Our brand reputation is strong." Then the door opened. I stepped inside. The entire room fell silent. Mark looked confused at first. "Emily," he said slowly. "What are you doing here?" I placed a folder on the table. Inside were the acquisition documents with my company's logo printed across the top. "I'm here because my firm finalized the purchase of your restaurant group yesterday," I said calmly. For the first time in his life, my brother didn't have a response. The investors began explaining the restructuring plan. My platform would transform every restaurant into a hybrid system. Physical dining combined with predictive delivery operations. Customer data would guide menu development, pricing strategies, and marketing campaigns. Mark sat frozen while the presentation continued. When the meeting ended, he finally spoke. "You built all this without anyone knowing?" he asked quietly. I nodded. "You always believed success had to be visible," I told him gently. "But the most powerful businesses grow where no one is looking." He stared at the floor for a long moment. Then he asked the question I had been waiting for. "What happens to me?" I slid another document across the table. "Your restaurants still need leadership," I said. "But the industry has changed. If you want to stay, you'll need to learn how the new system works." Mark looked at the contract. It offered him a position leading culinary development across the entire network. He looked up slowly. "You're giving me a job?" he asked. I smiled slightly. "I'm giving you an opportunity," I said. "The same kind you never believed I could create." Outside the conference room, employees were already hearing news about the acquisition. My company's technology was about to reshape how thousands of customers ordered food across the country. But inside that quiet room, something else had changed. For the first time in our lives, my brother realized something. The girl he once laughed at in a bank meeting had just rewritten the entire industry he thought he controlled. And the real lesson wasn't revenge. It was timing. Because the people who underestimate you are usually the last ones to realize when you've already won.